Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the special meeting of the Dearborn Heights City Council. Today is June 6th, 2023. It's right now 5:32, that one's off, 5:32 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Yes, Dave Abdallah.
Here.
Hassan Ahmad.
Here.
Moby Dune.
Here.
Nancy Breyer.
Here.
Robert Constant.
Absent.
Absent. Ray Muscat.
Here.
Tom Wenzel.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you got a quorum.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
At this particular point, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our controller. She's done a lot of work in the last few months, so she's going to start this off for us. Cindy King.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Controller, for all the hard work that you put through in the last, 2-3 months. Thank you.
6 months.
6 months. Yeah, thank you. Next up is our agenda approval.
Council Chair,
Councilman, go ahead.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council approve the agenda for the special meeting of June 6, 2023, as submitted.
Support. Okay, motion made by Councilman Muscat and seconded by Councilman Baydoun. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is public hearings and comment on agenda items only. And on today's agenda is obviously the budget, so any comments on the budget. If somebody has a comment on non-agenda items, you will have the opportunity at the end to be able to speak your mind during the public comments section. Come on up. And please state if you're speaking as a treasurer or resident.
Hello, good evening, honorable body. I am speaking as your treasurer this
Okay.
evening. I wanted to ask for your consideration for your item 11A to take the millages under section 1 point, the tax levy, to vote on those separately versus voting it as one unit with the budget itself. And the reason for that is traditionally, we always did it that way. If probably Councilman Muscat, Councilman Abdallah can attest to this, we used to round robin and do
Right.
them individually. I mean, you can do them individually or you can do them as a package, but either way, the reason I'm asking you for that consideration is because I need these numbers to be adopted by this honorable body for the tax rolls. I cannot complete the tax rolls for the residents of Dearborn Heights. I have about 2 weeks to get that into our printer to get mailed in time by July 1st.
So just to clarify, Madam Treasurer, and I'm thinking out loud here, your concern is that in the event, and again, I'm saying in the event, this particular budget did not pass, you're basically saying, I just want to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly, these obviously would not pass either because it's all a part of one resolution. Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure.
So if you would consider that, because at least I can get the tax rolls done, because I do have a deadline that's mandated by state law.
Council Chair,
So,
Councilman, go ahead.
do we have a listing of those millages?
Yes, it's
They're on your
on
page one.
section 1.00, tax levy.
Yep.
On 11A.
the
under
other, the other
What
thing, if
page
I
is
may,
that on?
oh, I'm
Right
sorry. Page 1, under section 1.00, tax levy, it's about halfway down the
Yeah,
page.
okay, I just want to get it.
Yeah, thank you. And just
Yes.
real quick to note, and I want to thank several people, if you notice, your levy, or you may not notice, for Act 345 has gone down from the previous year, and there's a lot of people that were involved in that process of reviewing the numbers to make that happen. So thank you for that, because that will help save our residents a little bit of money. So
Council
we
Chair,
appreciate that.
Yes, Councilman.
I guess that we may have to add this into our motion that we also include this, because I think it would be a good idea.
Well, it would be a good idea, but let's go ahead and address that when we get to the budget.
Correct, yes,
Yeah,
okay.
if, you know,
Yes.
again, whether the budget passes or doesn't pass, that's TBD, to be determined. But in the event it does not pass, I see the treasurer's concern,
absolutely.
and I agree with her.
All right, thank
I
you.
agree with her.
Do you have
Thank
any
you.
other questions? No,
Any questions for the treasurer?
Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
thank you.
Any other public comments on the agenda items only? Hello.
Hello,
City street name.
everyone. Rachel Lapointe, Merrick Street, Dearborn Heights, Michigan, Planet Earth, all that fun stuff. I had some questions, and I really would like some answers on some of these regarding the budget. So the first one is under revenues. Right now, the ARPA funds that we received, which were approximately $24.3 million, only $20 million is recorded as revenue. We're missing $4.3 million in revenue. Where is it?
Okay.
Is
So
it on a different line item? Is
what we'll do is we'll allow you
something
to
like
ask all
that?
your questions, whatever questions, you're saying you have
Yeah.
a bunch of questions. And then I'll have either the controller or from
Okay.
Plant Moran or chief of staff come up and
Okay.
answer them.
So that was the first one. And then why are they all recorded under the 22-23 fiscal year when half of them were dispersed in the 21-22 year and half were in the 22-23 year? Why are they all in
22, I believe.
22-23?
I'm sorry.
So that would be both ARPA-related ones. The next one would be the ARPA consultant fees. There's nothing budgeted for the next fiscal year, so are we done using them? Or are we not planning on using them at all? Maybe we should have a contingency in there if we're planning on using them. Regarding the golf course, we did not budget anything beyond what's already been approved, but we are contractually obligated to a multitude of other things, mainly the parking lot repavement. So why haven't we budgeted any funds for that? And then this one is a little bit more nitpicky, but the expenditures for this fiscal year that have been spent on our MMRMA insurance don't match the contract. So it says that we spent $850,000, but it should have been something like 1.5 million. So why is there such a big discrepancy in what we have spent versus what we were contracted to spend on our insurance? So those were the questions that I had.
Okay, so just to go over them, you had a question about the 24 million, the ARPA funds,
Right?
the ARPA consulting, the golf course, and the insurance.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody from either administration, controller, chief of staff, or Plant Miranda would like to answer those questions? Brian, come on up. Brian is from Plant Moran. Brian Camilleri, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Though that ARPA question is a very good one, and I understand why that might be confusing. So when it comes to federal grants, we don't necessarily recognize revenue at the time that we take receipt of the money. So in the case of the ARPA, we don't take it into revenue until we spend it. So we received $24 million over a 2-year period, and at that point had not done anything to spend it. We were holding it all. It's not revenue. We've got 24 million in our hands. We don't count it as revenue. It's unearned revenue. Then we built a couple $1 million into the 23 budget. I think we're using more than what was originally planned, and now we're doing the rest, the last 20 in 24. So planning to spend it means we get to recognize it at the same time.
Didn't we record 10 million last year, though?
No.
Okay. We
I think
get,
there's only 2 in the original 23 budget.
Brian, let's go ahead and just answer the questions only. I can't have it back and forth from the audience. I'm sorry. Okay, and then the second question she had in regards to the ARPA consultation, it's not showing, is that going to be showing on next year's budget is the question.
That one I'm going to have to defer to the administration.
Is that a yes or a no?
The ARPA consultant?
Yeah.
As you know, the ARPA consultant is based on tasks that we assign to them. The 2 tasks that we assigned them for this year are completed, so until we decide and vote on a new project that we want to spend those ARPA funds, we won't know what the cost of ARPA services is going to be. So again, once that project is selected, voted, and they give us a proposal on the cost for the management, that's when we would budget that number. It would be a budget amendment once the council approves it.
Okay, and then you want to answer the third and fourth question? If you're familiar, or do you want Brian to
I'll
answer?
just say, it'll be group effort.
Go ahead.
What's the third
So
question?
this third question was in regards to the golf course. Rachel, what was the question about the golf course?
Parking lot.
We are hoping to spend all of the money on the renovations this fiscal year. So I know that a lot of those bids already went out and the construction is happening on the majority of those projects. Again, if some of the funds don't get spent this year for what was already pre-approved, we will do a budget amendment to carry over whatever is left over at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, and then the last question was in regards to the insurance.
MMRA.
Yeah, MMRA.
That's split between multiple departments. So our MMRMA insurance is split between our water, highway, and water, sewer, highway, and the general fund. So the portion of the general fund is about $800,000, and the rest of them go into different portions of the budget. Courts, yeah, everybody.
Okay. Okay, Councilman, okay, I'm gonna allow you, Rachel, just a quick 10-second version.
Just clarify a little
Yeah.
bit here? Sorry. So with the ARPA consultants, we already pre-approved up to over $1 million. We've only spent 45. And are we not planning on having any further work done? Why wouldn't we put it in the budget if we're thinking, oh, let's pop in $50,000? Because that's what we spent this year. Like, it seems like we should put something in there as a placeholder. And then with the MMRMA, I found the different revenues in the budget. It's in the general, the water department, and library. And when you add it up, that's the revenues. The only appropriations was $850,000 in general government to be spent on it. So something's missing there. And that's based on the budget, the most recent updated one that was on the
Online.
website.
Okay,
So I'm not sure if there's some sort of.
It's not missing, it's just in a different line item.
okay, Brian, you
I've gone through the
want to,
whole
Brian,
thing, though.
you wanna answer
Like,
on the speak-
I don't know if we need to figure out where it's
All right.
at, but.
you want to go ahead and answer on this microphone?
I mean,
Brian?
the answer is it's just in a different line item in one of the other funds or in multiple other funds. It doesn't make sense to do tonight, but we'll put together a schedule that shows exactly where it all is, by account, by fund, and we'll distribute that to council.
Okay, thank you very much. And just to, let's see, I don't know if we need to put it online necessarily. You know what, if you call one of the, when do you think you'll get that to one of the council members, or all of us, I should say?
We'll get it to you in the next day or two.
Okay, so by the end of the week, yeah, just call one of the council members, and if they can, they'll forward you the answer. Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comments on agenda items? Come on up, sir. City, street name.
Hassan Ayoun, public activist, Dearborn, Greenfield. It is what it is. Okay, I just wanted to ask on the agenda item, the golf course. They keep talking about the golf course, right? That's the thing that, who pays the insurance on the golf course? Does the city pay it?
Yeah.
Wow. Who pays the water bill? The city?
The current water bills,
Listen, I just want to know, this is what's not making sense. Why would the city pay that? If I lease a building, I should pay for it. Now, the water bill, I should pay for it. Electricity, I should pay for it. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Cutting the grass, there's another place that you guys don't even cut the grass. There's another place you guys charge for the water bill. There's another place you guys make the person sit here and do all kinds of stuff, and the person not even recognized. It's very sad just to come here and talk about the budget. You guys want to talk about the budget? Make it fair for everybody. Not when somebody comes here and says, we're paying for this. Something's going on, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. This is not adding up. Why would you pay somebody's insurance? If I lease a place, a business, who's responsible? This is all a cover-up.
Council Chair,
okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'd like to know from the gentleman, which water bill is he talking about? The water bill that actually is?
I'm just asking.
But I'm asking you a question here. The water bill you're talking, are you talking about the building or on the golf course?
Because on the golf course, they get it from the river.
They get it from the river, so it's free. Now,
I'm not asking.
as far as I know, previously, and I haven't looked at this contract, so please don't quote me.
No.
Please don't. I know other places that have renting place pay their own water bill.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
I'm gonna assume and I shouldn't assume, and I need to look it up, and I will look it up, of who pays that portion of the water bill, okay? And don't forget, the city is self-insured.
I understand, but other
so-
people pay insurance on their building. Why are you guys gonna sit?
Well, I'm just, this is gonna be a legal question, and
It's not, listen, it's not a legal question.
But just to be
it is
fair-
so they can look at the
Just to be
contract.
fair, Mr. Owen, the
No, no, hey,
contract,
listen, if you guys own city property, other people own city property, I think it should be equal to everybody. But if you pay insurance for this person, you gotta pay insurance for this person.
And that's what we need to find out. So that was a good question.
yeah, it's a good question.
It's a great
I don't have
question.
the contract in front of me.
And I
so-
don't have the contract in front of me.
Unless
let's be-
Mariana
I'm
knows.
not-
Unless everybody
Yeah, hold
knows.
on, Mariana may know. One second.
Okay, so, I mean, it's a great question.
Good question. Do you have the contract for you? Okay, perfect. So Mariana is the chief of staff. She'll be able to answer your question.
So just to clarify, all city buildings are insured under our insurance, whether they're leased or not.
How come LA Sports not,
It is.
how? The
It
building?
is, yes. All of the buildings of the city are insured by the city. All city-owned property in general, even sidewalks, empty lots, they're all insured by our insurance. With regards to the water bill, it is the responsibility of the the vendor that's leasing the property to pay for all of their utilities. I know that we did pay a bill this year while they were under construction, especially because we owned it without a concessionaire for many
DTE one?
months. No, we have never paid for electrical, just our own water bill. And I think that covers it, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of our,
Councilman-
and then as far as the insurance, all of our agreements also require that the person that we're leasing it to has their own insurance too. So depending on what the liability is, either them or us take it. So if somebody gets into an accident into one of the golf carts, that's their responsibility, not ours. Now, if somebody crashes into the building because whatever, that's our responsibility, it's our building, it's our property. So there are very
Councilman Ahmad's got a
specific
question.
legal
And
restrictions.
any policies that they are insuring, we're named insurance as well.
Yeah.
I presume, based on a gentleman's question, I presume, based on traditional housing insurance, the landlord pays for the house insurance, and then the tenant will pay for
Liability
Property.
insurance.
tenant insurance. That's what I presume.
That's all figured in.
Okay.
Thank you,
Councilman
Council
Ahmad's
Chair.
got a question.
I'm sorry, Mariana, do you mind the verification? He mentioned Elite Sport. Do we own Elite Sport? I thought there was a
Yes.
land lease. and he
We
built-
own it.
and
We are
own the
leasing
actual
it,
building?
and they pay us rent, just like with the golf course.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are they insured? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Council Chair,
Councilman, go ahead.
seeing that we had insurance on the golf course itself, the physical golf course, did we make insurance claims because of all the damage to the windstorms?
Yes.
Did,
Yeah, man.
what was the,
I don't know, the golf course
I never
is on
heard
the
anything
agenda.
kind of claim.
We're still working on it. Most of these take a long time. They're still active cases
So we did make a claim on,
on various different things that are still currently being looked at by our lawyers.
did we make a claim on the damage?
Yes.
The building?
Yes.
The water damage?
Yes.
When can we see that? That's new to me.
When the
I've never-
lawyers are ready to present it.
Pardon me?
When the lawyers are ready to present it to council, like with any legal case.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not speaking as Dave Abdallah. I'm speaking on behalf of one of the city employees who asked me to read this letter on her behalf.
Councilman, can you, how much time are you gonna allocate?
I'm allowed about an hour and a half now.
No,
It should-
no,
it should be
you
no
either
more than-
get 2 or 3 minutes, my
No,
friend.
no more than 2 minutes.
Can you give your name and street,
No more than
please?
2 minutes. So.
Name and street, please.
Yeah. So my name is Dave Abdallah. I'm a council chair, but I'm not speaking on behalf of myself. I'm speaking on behalf of one of the city employees, and she emailed me and asked me if I could read this at the city council meeting.
Can we have the name?
Yes, I'm going to do that. So this is from Sally, who's a city employee on Kingston Street, and she's also a city resident. And this is, I'm reading this on her behalf. I want to thank those council members who have spoken up for the union workers at the last regular council meeting. I fully understand you are not negotiating a contract for us, but for the first time, I feel that someone is finally listening and hearing the frustration we are having. It is true that morale is at an all-time low. Administration has never spoken about how hardworking and dedicated their clerical and DPW workers are. We just hear how much they, as administration, need the raises as they are working so hard, which I don't doubt. But my questions are, who does the day-to-day transactions such as payments, comma, who issues the licenses, comma, permits, comma, C of Os, comma, who has to go to catch the dogs that get out, comma, who patches the roads and goes down the manholes to fix the water main breaks? The answer is the DPW and clerical workers. We are also putting in the hard work, making sure we are meeting the deadlines, getting water main breaks fixed so that our citizens are not without water. We have worked the long hours. We have had to work during the pandemic sometimes in our homes and out in the public to keep the city moving along. We have sat back and seen numerous other unions get big raises just this year. The mayor stated that they can't wait for all the union contracts to be negotiated every year, but honestly, they could settle them before the budget needs to be approved. I'm pretty sure all our contracts expire at the end of June, like the budget. I hope that what has been said by the comptroller, that they are willing to work with us, is true, and that means more dollars, not just nonsense that we have been offered in the past. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
She said, I just wanted to, well, I got one question.
Unfortunately, it's one time. You will have, at the end, during the public comments, you'll have the opportunity to speak on anything you want to speak about. Okay. Anybody else with a public comment on the agenda items? In person? I see none. And on Zoom, I don't see any. Do you see any, Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you very much. All right, next up is item 11A. Now, we've been going back and forth for many, many months in regards to the budget. And we had to put a special meeting today because it did not pass, obviously, the last time. There's been many, many conversations back and forth between administration, the city council members, department heads, residents, et cetera, et cetera. And right now, we are at a point where we're going to put this to a vote again. But before we do, I do know that some council members have some questions, comments, and concerns. So we're going to go ahead and try to address them. Our ultimate motive is, or I speak at least on my behalf of myself as a council chair, is hopefully we are able to pass this within the deadline that's in the charter, which is, it was basically today or yesterday. But also, per the state, we have to turn in a budget before the beginning of the next fiscal year, which in this case would be July the 1st. So all I'm asking our council body is, let's try to focus on making this thing work. And all I'm asking is administration, let's try to work with the council body, try to have some sort of a compromise and some sort of an agreement so that we can all move forward. What I don't want is any type of potential black eye for the city where we're going back and forth on the budget, another 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings, and we go past the fiscal, the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July the 1st. And that's something that I want to do everything within my personal powers to try to avoid. But at the same time, I hope administration can work with the council body to get some sort of resolution to this. With that in mind, let's go ahead and get started on 11A.
Council Chair,
Councilman Muscat.
I move that the Dearborn Heights City Council adopt a resolution of this council of the city of Dearborn Heights, Michigan, adopting an operating budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, as outlined in 11A. What about the taxes? That's full.
We can discuss it.
It's all in there.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Muscat and seconded by Councilwoman Breyer. So let's go ahead and start with any comments, questions, concerns.
Go ahead. Council Chair.
Councilman Baydoun, go
My
ahead.
question is, and guys, I just want to be as respectful as possible, but I think it's insulting that you guys gave us the same exact budget, which was just denied twice. It's insulting, and I hope that this meeting here today we can find common ground so that we can pass this budget. But I voiced my concern. I believe several of my colleagues here voiced their concerns, and I'm going to stand very firm on that. But I find it very disappointing that we received the same exact budget. That's where I stand. Because if you're asking me to vote on the same exact budget, my vote is the same. Like the budget hasn't changed, my vote hasn't changed. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to have maybe a couple different council members, and maybe, because they may be the same possible concerns, and then we'll go ahead and maybe address them together. But you want to address this
If
first?
I
Go
may,
ahead.
may
Go ahead.
I respond
Go ahead,
first?
Brian.
So first of all, I misspoke earlier when I was
Rachel.
answering her question, Rachel's question. So the ARPA money, there is a caveat within the act that allows you, anybody, to spend the first 10 million of your award on any governmental service with a handful of exceptions. And so that 10 million will be recognized in the current FY '23. We'll be using it to pay personnel costs that would normally be paid from other sources. It's a great strategy for putting more money into the city's pocket to be able to do projects that you'd like.
If I may interrupt you for a second on that, you're saying will be subject to city council vote and approval.
It's in fund balance right now. You moved
Well,
it all to fund balance.
It's an accounting issue. I don't know that council needs to weigh
Well,
in.
because you're saying, I thought I heard you say 10 million will be used for
Well,
that.
we already proved that, though. We already proved that, so that 10 million is already going in. That was approved by council already.
Yeah.
Council Chair, is it 23, 22, 2022, 2023, or
20
23, 24?
22, 23.
So they're using it for this project before I hand them.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
So that takes care of that. Councilman Baydoun, yes, it's the same budget because this is still a very valid and accurate budget. I've had multiple conversations with council chairman to hopefully alleviate some of the concerns about misinformation that was brought up in prior council meetings. So I would like to address, and I'd be happy to listen to the other questions first, or I can go right into it. But some of the concerns that were not resolved in prior meetings, I can resolve them in 10 seconds. And I would hope that that would be enough to change your mind on your vote, certainly within your right to vote however you like. But this is a good budget. It's good for the city. I will stand behind it. And the great thing about budgets is if you don't like something, it can always be amended. But
Brian?
if you don't pass this or pass a budget before June 30th, the city, everybody, the city will be in violation of the State Budget Act.
Brian, I just want you to know something. When the city told us that we're in violation of our CSO bond and we're not doing all of our stuff, I was told by a city employee that, you know what, since instead of taxing or levying or pulling out these bonds on our taxpayers, we could have went to the state and said, which I am held responsible because I made a vote on that and I voted yes. And I wish I knew what I knew then. But I'm going to tell you, if I'm going to make a vote on a budget right now that I'm not comfortable with, and you're telling me you can give me 10 seconds and it's going to change my mind, I wish you would have called me and we would have surpassed all of this entire meeting. And then with respect, and I know you called the council chair, but there's 6 other council members, well, at least 3 other that
So let me
also
address
voted
that
no.
just quickly. On that conversation I had with Bill Camilleri and the mayor, and we went back and forth on obviously trying to take the budget in the right direction, I said the answers that they gave me, because I got a call from Brian Camilleri first thing in the morning right after the budget. And when I spoke with him, I said, okay, well, these are questions, concerns, comments that you're making. I said, but keep in mind, it's not a dictatorship. It's not just the Dave Abdallah show. So I said, can you do me a favor? Can you put that in writing and email it to all the council members? And that's one that he emailed to all the council members, the same comments he made to me, which is this email right here, with the 4 items addressed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go ahead and answer, or
I
is
would
that
just
it?
add,
Okay.
I would just add it, I didn't see any response to the email when it went out from Brian, from any other council members. And if you had any comments, I would have liked to have seen them, it would have helped us before.
Well, with respect, we had a lot of comments in the discussion, great discussion. And look, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. I want to pass the budget. That is our ultimate goal here today, is to pass the budget. But we also know that we want to be fiscally responsible.
Sure.
All right, and if there are questions that I have, I'm going to make sure that I'm holding these questions and I'm holding the administration to the best of my
I
ability.
agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
All I'm saying to you, though, is when you get something in writing on this issue, it helps us when we get written responses back and
I know-
comments. That feedback guides us, and that would have been important before we met today, but just to say.
Okay. So I've got a couple of concerns, and changes possibly on the budget. Okay, number one for me, the water rates. I I've thought about it a lot, and I've talked to different members of administration, department heads, et cetera, and I went to the past. I personally, speaking on my behalf, I don't want the water rates passed today with the budget. I think right now we have water rates that are going to be going up. I know we have some money in the water and sewer fund. I just believe that something like this should be voted on separately and after a study session. So for me personally, again, I'm speaking on my behalf, not on behalf of all of them, but I would like to get the support from the council members to keep that completely separated from the budget. We will have a study session, we'll have a discussion about it, and we will determine as a body if the water rates are going to be raised. On a side note, for those residents that are not familiar with how this works, obviously, sometimes we get raises from GWLA, which is the Great Lakes Water Authority, GLWA. When they raise the water rates on us, then obviously a lot of times, or most of the time, it has to be
All the
passed
time.
on. I get it, but at the same time, I think there should be a discussion on it, a conversation on it, and then we'll go from there. So for me, if that's in there, I'm going to vote no. Second thing, the 14 million, I'm going to give you an opportunity to address this $14 million issue, okay? And I don't know if you're going to write these, but I'll try to remind you what the concerns that I've got. So again, the first one's the water rates. That's got to be addressed. The $14 million issue. You've answered it for me. The concern that I've got, I've had, again, conversations. In this part, I don't get, I'm telling you honestly. I get an answer from you. I get an answer from somebody else in administration different. I get an answer from another department head that's totally different. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to be here, because I'd like to hope and think that you're going to be the most objective, because you are indirectly a third party. But you do work for the administration, so I keep that in the back of my head.
I work for the
For
council.
the council, but I know, but you're working with the administration, so I keep that in the back of my head, but you are a third party. I want that $14 million deficit addressed today. So that's the second issue. Third issue that I had, the CDBG budget. There's all kinds of numbers flying around. Some are at 11 million, I think off the top of my head, something with our budget here. Some at like our budget is like 500 and some thousand. Take it back, 580 or whatever it is. And then you got with CDBG with Hassan, Director Hassan Jamal, he's got on his, and don't quote me, I think 11 million something, a whole different number, a whole huge number difference. I spoke with Brian Camilleri, I got a whole, not a different number, but a whole different opinion. I don't understand how, and I'm not lashing out at you guys.
I know you're not.
I'm just confused as somebody that's not an accountant. How could we have three different numbers, three different opinions on something that should be, I'd like to think, common? So I'd like to have that addressed. Next one, raises. I, for one, and I think I've spoken to some other council members, not pushed them in that direction. They felt the same, and they can speak on their behalf. But we feel the raises are going to be put on hold. And I got your email in regards to labor negotiations. It's not contingent, the raises are not contingent upon better labor relationships, better contracts to our clerical and other members of our, not administration, I should say, City Hall employees. But I really feel that in my 8 years on council, I've heard the same thing from every administration. So this is not this administration, every administration. Oh yeah, the contract is later, so we'll go ahead and address that then, but let's just go ahead and pass the budget right now. And what happens, the contract comes up, it's still not, to my opinion, good enough. And then what happens, well, we'll address that during the next budget. And then we're back to a revolving door. I'm against that. So to me, the raises are gonna be held on hold, put on hold. We can make a budget amendment when we need to. I'm all for paying people higher, so let's make that clear. The next two I was good with. I had my questions answered by administration, so I'm good. And they were the building and engineering new hire and the corporation council new hire. I was good with those, so we're good on that. And then the last one that I had as a concern is, well, actually, with the treasurer's budget, there seems to be different numbers between our budget and the numbers that are coming from the treasurers. And this is no indication, good or bad, against one person or the other. Again, back to, I don't understand, and please clarify it for me, how we can have completely different numbers. It's just, there should be an agreement so that it's much easier to pass this thing. But when we have one party saying, oh, it should be this, one party saying it should be that, and these are both, not arguably, facts, experts, I don't get it. So these are my concerns. Other council members can comment, or you can address them now, whatever you'd like.
Yes, you did a great job, Council Chair.
Okay.
Council Chair?
Well, if anybody would like to add anything.
I would like
so that
to
he
add just a
can,
couple of things.
they can
I
answer.
know that, the councilman here has requested to have something added towards,
From the
Media.
money, you mean? The
yeah,
media?
yeah, so, and like we said, it can be set up as a placeholder. But, you know, like, this, with me, it's not the back and forth. I think, the council chair nailed it. It goes back to having the water rates, having the $14.6 million deficit. You know, these are things that are.
There is no deficit. Let me just say that. So
Okay.
let's stop talking about a $14 million deficit. It does not exist.
Okay, so are you gonna explain that for us? So then
Yes,
maybe
sir.
I'll let you go ahead and explain that for us. Go ahead.
Okay. What you are seeing in the budget is expenses greater than revenue by $14 million. Because you issued a bond 2 years ago, and the city has been sitting on a pile of money since then. So the bond hit 2 years ago. We're going to spend it in the next year doing much-needed infrastructure improvements. It does not mean that you have a deficit. It does not mean that you're going to have to file a deficit elimination plan with the state. It does not mean you have negative equity. Anyone that has led you to believe that otherwise is just plain wrong.
Well, I don't think anybody led us to believe it. We just seen the numbers. and,
In
you know,
brackets.
Yeah.
Council Chair?
Okay, but if I could, I'm allowed you to speak, Councilman, but based on that comment, we got the money 2 years ago. We had a budget last year. There was no $14 million in brackets.
It
So why do we have
wasn't
it this
planned to
year?
be spent. The projects had not made it into the
But we had
budget.
received the bond, though.
Yes.
And
We
you're
had
saying,
proceeds.
and I'm not going after you. I'm just trying to clarify. The money's not been spent, therefore it's in brackets as a negative.
You're spending more than you're bringing in the next fiscal year because you already have the money in the bank.
Right, but what I'm saying, did we not have the money in the bank during last year's budget?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so it's the same scenario? Or just not spending it, like Councilman's saying?
You didn't put the projects in the 23
For
budget.
approval.
The projects are now in the 24 budget.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Wenzel, we all set? Councilman, 1 second, let me just make sure we all set? Okay,
Yeah, I'm okay.
Councilman Wenzel, go ahead.
Okay, well, I have several things. One thing is the bond money that we're referring to, we've been borrowing on that for projects. So we don't have, I mean, if we had 14 million in there, we bonded out for projects. We've been borrowing from future projects, which you're talking about spending on this year, last year.
No, sir.
Yeah, that's what we've been
sir.
doing
we're
that.
not borrowing
You
anything
issued
from
24, $25 million of bonds. Some of it has been spent to date. And the plan for fiscal year 24 is actually 16 million or 16 and a half, which is why you see the negative 14, which is just expenses greater than the revenue. There hasn't been any borrowing against that, to my knowledge.
What
The
happened
bond is
to-
just sitting there.
What happened to, I don't know if it's the same bond or not, but what happened to the $9 million set aside in the bond for the water meters that we don't have anymore?
It's still sitting there. The money hasn't been spent.
We were told that one of the meters that was gone.
The
It's not
project
gonna be
was
used
a
for
lot
water
more
meters.
expensive.
No, we were told there's not enough money there for the bond, for the water
There-
meters.
No, the meters are more expensive than what was originally planned.
Correct.
But the money from the bond nothing happened to it. It went into your bank account and has sat there since, and very little of it has been spent.
Council
So
Chair?
now we're planning on
Okay,
spending it in
let me make sure
24.
Councilman Wenzel's done, and you're next. We all
Okay.
set, Councilman
No,
Wenzel?
no, I'm not, I'm still not clear on that, but anyway, the water rate increase, Council Chair recommended we have a study session, but not only a study session, we have to have a public hearing on this. We never do water rate increases without a public hearing. That's one thing we have to do. I mean, someone's trying to throw it into the budget without any kind of study session, any kind of public hearing, just throw it in there. And that just shows you right there, why are they doing something like that? They're trying to, do the wrong thing.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Public hearings are not typical?
Public hearings are not required for changing rates. It's not. You can do it at any point in time by a vote of council. Whether you vote on them or not tonight doesn't matter to me. Strike that part from the budget. You can have as many subsequent study sessions as you want to go through it, and it sounds like there's a need for that, so that the public understands why their rates need to go up. Perfectly fine. But nothing wrong has been done by putting that into this budget. It
We've
is
always
not
had it,
illegal.
though. We've always had public hearings.
That
So
may be
he's
true.
saying
but
You
it-
can.
it's
I know,
not
but I'm saying,
required.
yeah, it's, why not go, why do something that's not out of the ordinary? It just seems funny when you do that.
Sir, with all, if I can be honest, it's because there's a lot of important things that need to get done, and we would like to get some of them done as soon as possible, so that we can move on to other issues.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, the water rate in the city of Dearborn Heights is on the top of everyone's mind. Every person in Dearborn Heights, and we pay the highest water rate of anybody in this area. I don't know why. I'd like to have an explanation on that too someday. We can say, why are we paying such a high rate? Another thing is the CDBG. We had when they were here on the budget hearings, we agreed to give these pay increases to the employees there. And that didn't reflect in the budget.
No.
It's not, and I don't know if we should just take that out of the budget completely, like we had talked about, that, or put them raises in that we I think all of us agreed on. Councilman Baydoun, he was
I did,
instrumental in bringing it up.
absolutely, and I still stand with that.
And, that's another, this is another issue, like Councilman Baydoun said, this is the same budget, and we had all these concerns. And that was a big concern, that was a big topic at several meetings. And now the raises, normally, you give raises out in the corporate industry, you give your raises to your rank and file first, and then you give it to the management, so to speak. That's a common way of doing things. And here we're doing it opposite. And then we give the raises to the management and then see how much money we have left over for the rank and file. And where it should be the opposite. And as Councilman Baydoun said, that Councilman Ahmed wanted the media. We also need the media access for the council members. We also, it was mentioned that we need corporate representation, council representation for our city council members. Legal representation, I mean. And that's something I think we really need, because we would like to have some kind of advice outside the city council group here, or the administrative group, someone that can speak objectively, like a third party was mentioned before. We would like some kind of legal representation other than the corporation council. And that was mentioned, and that's not in here either.
Can I just add
Council
one
Chair?
thing?
Councilman Muscat was first. We all set,
Yeah,
Councilman
I'm good.
Wenzel?
I'm good for now.
Okay, Councilman Muscat, go ahead.
First and foremost, about the bond money. People on council, and I believe you were on council too, Mr. Wenzel. I know Councilman Baydoun and Councilman Ahmad were not, and neither was Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. The bond money for the CSO and the water meters were combined into one bond. I personally voted no because I wanted them separated.
You did.
And it was passed to go together. This is the reason why I wanted 9 million over here, 14 million or 13.5 million over there. It didn't pass council. It passed by council to put them all together. So now we have to live with that mistake. As far as I'm concerned, it was a mistake, okay, on council's part. And I'm part of council, so obviously I didn't lobby hard enough to get that the way I wanted it, okay? So we must remember that.
And I want you to know something though, Councilman. I remember that. I remember me and you having that discussion. And I think it was Mr. Saputo that told us it's state regulated, and that's why we voted yes. And you still voted no. I remember that. I recall that vote. But I just want to say something to Brian if it's.
Just make sure you're all set.
No, not really.
ahead.
I mean, and I've got a lot of things going on in my mind here, and everything is going on. And as far as, what we want for a budget for legal, I know that we passed a budget with $30,000 for council previously for legal counsel. But it was done not at the beginning of the year, it was done in the middle of the year. Okay? This is something you could do at any time. Okay? We're trying to force something here that doesn't need to be done. That's what they're called, budget amendments. Okay? I mean, we put $30,000 or $50,000 in it, we may never use it. That's $50,000 that could go someplace else that could be used, okay? Now, if there's a time where we need legal advice from someone, a third party, we can, as a council, say, we want to spend X amount of dollars on this, and we vote yes or we vote no. Now, as far as the movies, the things that council, media, I don't know how, $50,000 is it sounds like a lot of money to me, okay? 50 grand is a lot of money, when we already own the cameras and
Nothing
things of
from the
that
audience,
nature.
please.
I don't think the public really wants us to have something like that, personally, okay? So, and if we want to do something special, and you bring it forward before council, say, I'd like to have $3,500 to do this. Yes, okay, we can do that, okay?
It's a placeholder, Council
Yeah,
Pro
but you know
Tem.
what? Placeholders aren't the greatest thing in the world either.
This entire budget was placeholders.
I understand it, but I believe the placeholders were taken out, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were taken out because it wasn't really a good idea.
So I just want to bring the council members, just give them a little historical context in regards to having an additional attorney that represents the city council alone, just to bring you guys, some of you guys up to speed. We always had our corporation counsel, Gary Miyotki, a very good city attorney. And at the time, some council members, while I was serving too, felt they wanted to get quote-unquote unbiased opinion from a second party. And that's why, at that time, we had a budget amendment and we changed it to where there's another potential attorney that can be working on behalf of the city council, quote-unquote. Just to state to you, per the charter, the corporation council that we have, whether it's, and this is not a specific person, Roger, whoever happens to be sitting in that seat, by charter represents both the city council and the mayor and the administration. They represent us both. But I want to bring you up to speed that when we did put it in the budget, nothing was used. It was 30,000 at the time.
Yeah, but,
and nothing was
and
used.
one more thing, Council Chair, we pick an attorney, and according to the charter, it's got to go through our corporation council anyway.
Right.
Okay, so let's beware of what we're doing here, and not just, shoot from the hip and say, well, that's what we want, we're gonna get it.
So
I just want to add something to your
Yeah,
statement.
but I'm just going to finish.
If this past council and the previous council didn't bring on a corporation council, that was your guys' fault.
No. There was one that was brought on up to $30,000, but I'm
We
telling
never
you, it was not
used it.
used. Nobody used it.
Nobody used it.
Okay.
I personally, I don't.
And it can't be used by one person. It's got to be a vote of the whole council. You can't just say, well, I disagree with Corporation Council Farina. I want my own attorney. Everybody here has to vote yes on it,
Right.
not just one person.
Okay, Councilman Breyer?
Along those same lines, I wanted to ask why we owe 62,000 more for our recommended budget for a corporation lawyer. Can somebody tell me where that 62,000 is going?
Yes, that was for the paralegal.
So it's not broke down in here, the paralegal portion.
We discussed that at the meetings.
I remember, okay,
With
so
the gentleman
that is a
from the-
paralegal?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have one other question. Monopole reimbursement, the cell tower. Back in 21-22, the activity was 132,129. The amended budget for 22-23 was 185,000. The activity through June 30th of this year is estimated at 171,781. And then they've got projected activity, but we're only budgeting 135,000. If this is income, shouldn't it be going up rather than down?
It's a good question.
So there's a new accounting standard that has just come out in the last 2 years, which requires, it's lease revenue. So it requires a portion of the old revenue that was in that account to be now moved to interest revenue. So you'll have the monopole reimbursement revenue, and then you'll have interest revenue based on that. So that's why you see it going down.
Contractually, I don't believe anything has changed.
Exactly. It's just broken out into two different line
I
items.
just didn't see it.
I just
make sure you all set, Councilwoman?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to put up a little bit of clarification here with Brian. When Wade Trim came here and sat and gave a presentation with Ali Deeb, he told us that, it's on the record, that the reason we don't have water meters is because we overspent it, or no, we didn't overspend, but the other jobs that were doing, so there was 4 or 5 jobs. Job 1 was supposed to cost X amount of money, ended up costing Y, so a lot more. Job 2 was supposed to cost X, ended up costing Y, a lot more. So when we had that money, which council, Councilman Pro Tem was actually the only accurate person. He was the only one that said separate the water and so that we can make sure that we had the money for the water meters. So it's not that the water meter prices went up. It was that we overspent or, inflation went up
CSO
on the CSO projects, which were more expensive. So now we don't have that remaining money inside there because we've spent them and Wade Trim has said this to us. We have spent money that was supposed to be for project 3 and 4, but we don't have it because we spent that on project 1, 2, and 3.
Council Chair,
Let's make sure
one
it's
second,
finished.
please.
You will. Let's make sure we all set.
But according to this, remember, when we did that bond money, okay, we did that, 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, okay, in 2021, okay? So we didn't even have the engineering done on those CSO projects. We didn't have any engineering done on the water. We were sold a bill of goods, okay, by the administration at the time. And through DPW, we weren't given the proper information to base our yes or no votes on it. I don't know what made me vote no on all of this, but I knew it was way too early to go get this money without any engineering studies done. Nobody even knows about where we're gonna put a tower to read these meters at.
Councilman, you know what you said? I can tell you verbatim. Your word was, I'm done, I'm tired of kicking the can down the road.
Yes,
Those
and
are
that's
your exact
exactly
words.
what they were doing.
Yeah.
So if we had done this CSO project
I don't forget.
12 years ago, it may have cost us half the amount.
Correct, you said those exact words,
Okay,
by the way.
so,
And I'm gonna apologize to you, Council Pro Tem, because you know what? You were right, I was wrong.
no, you weren't wrong.
But-
You weren't wrong. You listened to what people were saying, but the grasp of the thing, okay, nobody grasped it, okay? It's kind of my ballpark field that I live in, okay?
Yeah.
And you scratch your head, how are you gonna pay for this when you haven't even said, I'm gonna put it over there, or I'm gonna put it over there? Or how much does this water meter cost? And I also brought up the fact is why should somebody have to pay for their water meter?
You did.
Hang on.
Yep.
Based on their water consumption.
You did.
A water meter costs X amount of dollars. They should pay the same thing as I do when I only use 1 gallon a week.
Yep. you
Okay?
did.
That's what I said, and I still stand by that. Just because a guy's got 6 kids, why should he pay more for that water meter than me? Okay, but now I think we're getting way off the subject of the budget, okay? We're trying to negotiate contracts, we're trying to fix a budget.
Nobody's negotiating
And,
contracts,
well, I'm
man.
just saying.
I don't
So,
think-
so
yeah.
if we want to remove the CEED, okay, and the water, let's just take them out and pass this doggone budget, okay? And I believe everything will be fixed just that way.
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
You can take out the water rate increase. No
Well,
problem.
let's do this one at a time. Are all council members okay with taking out the water rates? Because I'm all for it.
Yes, water must be removed.
Okay, so water rates are removed. That'll be done at a separate study session, so that's out. Next one, let's knock out some of these, then we'll leave whatever's left. Next one for me, the 14 million. Is everybody comfortable with the
I am not.
answer that we've been given by Brian in regards to the 14 million? Or do you have additional questions?
I am.
Council Chair, I'm sorry, do you mind walking through again the 14 million? So you're saying we're overspending.
No, sir.
But
And
we-
you got to be careful with your
You just
words.
said that
You're spending more than you're bringing in because you already
next
have
year,
the
okay.
money. It's not overspending.
Well,
Technically it is,
it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's there.
You're spending more than you have.
No, you have the money already. You're
Okay.
spending more than you're bringing in this one year. That's not overspending.
You know what we were told last year by one of the smartest comptroller, this is the greatest comptroller of all time. You know, from Plant Moran. Plant Moran.
Hey, you want some salt and pepper for that sneaker?
Plant Moran group. Your team, aren't you Plant Moran Gap?
Yes, I am.
Plant Moran Gap told us verbally, one thing about me, I don't forget, I'll pull up the video for you. You guys are overspending, and we, hold
Not
on.
in water and sewer.
Hold on, and so we took $2.5 million from
2.2.
ARPA money, $2.2 million.
That was
from ARPA
general
money.
fund. That was
Correct,
not our.
and we were overspending, you guys need to slow down. Those words were said to me,
We're
guys.
talking about water and sewer.
No, we were using it for the general, where did the 2.2 go into?
The question was about water and sewer.
That was general
Okay.
fund.
Water and sewer is not overspending anything. It's paying for what it needs to pay for. In this particular budget, You're spending the bond money on projects, the bond money that you received in previous years. I do want to clarify one thing, and I said to Councilman Wenzel. You said borrowing from other projects or borrowing for other, it's not borrowing. We just decided to spend it where it was needed at the time because original estimates were too low.
Way too low.
It's all going to the water and sewer system. It's all going to infrastructure. It's just a question of, at the time you put shovel in the ground or connect a new pipe, what does it cost? Okay, that much we're going to pay out of the proceeds of the bond.
But you know what concerns me about that, though? What concerns me about that, and I know we passed them together, and we sold the residents a bill of goods that there's gonna be new water meters. And what's great for you, Mr. and Mrs. Resident, is this will be read from the outside, this will be more accurate, your water bills may possibly go down, you'll be able to assess how much water you're paying, you know, and, oh my God, it was just so beautiful, it sounded great. To me too. And I'm a realtor. And I'm like, wow, this is good stuff. But then we use the money for something else.
Council
I know everything went up, but we used the money for something else. So the concern I've got with that, and it's too late now, is that's what we sold the residents on, and that's why they passed the bond. But now that they passed the bond, we said, oh, we used it for our CSO, expenditure.
Council Chair.
Yes.
But let's remember one thing. I also said this about all of this water meter stuff and water rates. People don't know what they're paying in their water rates. They see water bill, and they see X amount of dollars for water, X amount of dollars for sewage, and they say, oh my God, look what but they don't know they're paying for all of this other services, water main break, everything. I've asked to be detailed billing for the people to realize what they're paying for. I'd like to know what I'm paying for.
You've asked for that for the last 3 years, Councilman.
Yeah, but so, I'm just saying, people see water bill. Oh my God, my water's so high. So I may be paying more than Dearborn because I've got an older system that has to be repaired. Or Livonia, or whatever. I'm just picking cities out of the air, okay? But the fact of the matter is, people don't know what they're paying for. And this is what they need to know, okay? So that's why, think about your water rates, and when the water meter or the water main breaks out in front of your house, somebody has to pay to get that fixed. And that's all of us. It's not the person that just lives on that street. The whole city pays for it.
Okay, Councilman Ahmad?
Thank you, Council Chair. I'm sorry, if you can walk me through it again.
Sure.
So it's 14 million, 14.3 that we're spending less than what we bringing in. So how much money coming from that bond? How much money is left from the bond?
How much is left after the projected spending in '24? Okay, how much would be left?
But we do have
That's what I'm saying.
14 million in there to cover.
Yeah,
We
just transferred 8 million back to water, instead of direct paying from the 21 bond.
Okay, Treasurer, if you don't mind, stay on the microphone, because otherwise it won't come up on Zoom.
There's still more than the 16 million that is planned to be spent in this budget.
It's still there?
There's more than that number.
Okay. So my second question is, we're going back to what you said, you just mentioned the ARPA money, the $10 million that we approved 2.2 early this fiscal year. Well, we approved the 2.2 that we already used, and you said the rest has already been used this fiscal year.
It's all on paper.
7.8. 7.8, so but now it's 10 million, it's already been used.
It's up to 10
So
million.
no more ARPA money next year.
Well,
There's the 14
because you started with 24 or 25.
Correct, and we already spent 10 million.
Yeah, and so my understanding is that the administration plans to spend the rest on water and sewer projects. That is part of what is acceptable under the American Rescue Plan Act. The 10 million that's in general fund is under a provision called the revenue loss. Doesn't mean you actually lost revenue, that's just what the feds called it.
Okay.
We are allowed to spend that money on any governmental purpose except extra pension contributions and a handful of things. It is a
I
great
understand.
strategy to spend, and it's not like we have different pots of money and we're going to spend out of different pots. It's just we're going to, on paper, allocate regular expenses of personnel against that 10 million. then you don't have to spend property taxes and state shared revenue and other unrestricted sources of money on those same expenses.
Point of order.
And so by doing that, it is a benefit to the general fund's fund balance. So the 10 million that is being spent, it's not on additional things, it's on the same things that we'd already pay for anyway, so that we have more money to do other things at a future date.
I mean, but the way I look at it, we already approved the budget last year, but now we're spending 10 million.
The 10
We already
million is in
spent-
23.
No, 7.8 can only be in there because we
Yeah,
spent
we already-
2.4 last, 2.2
So
last
whatever,
year.
so we approved the budget 59 last year, now it's almost, we spent 69 million.
So 2.2 was in your original budget when you passed it.
Correct.
7.8 was approved as part of your budget amendment. So that brings you up to the 10 million in lost
Correct.
revenue.
Yes,
So there's nothing for this 23-24 budget.
it's all in 23.
It's all what you've already approved, nothing additional.
That's what I thought
Council
too.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
So, you know, for lack of a better phrase, we could use that 10 million as a flex amount. You can use it for different things besides what the government says you can use it on, if you have a good reason, right?
Well, you
Yeah,
still have to
it's
follow
like
the
a flex.
federal rules,
Now-
but they're very loose.
I had a resolution that I gave the city council a while back. I gave it a couple times about giving bonuses to all the employees using the ARPA money. And part of it was, I assume, some of that flex money. That all that 10 million is already allocated. There's nothing left to spend of that 10 million.
It's
all allocated.
just on paper.
Yeah.
If you want to call it one thing or another, you can call it one thing or another. You could buy a bunch of these. It doesn't matter. It's all on paper.
Well, doesn't that hurt us for next year because we're artificially inflating the money we're taking in by $10 million, and next year that 10 million is not going to be there.
Well, we have to recognize it at the time that we quote-unquote spend it, but you have to do that at some point. So
Okay, and that spending would be subject to, again, council approval, correct?
No.
This is just an accounting issue. This is not something that council has to approve.
But
It's,
you keep saying that the administration can go use that 10 million
They're
for
not-
paying everything
well,
except X, Y, and Z.
so let me rephrase. The act of using the ARPA money does not have to go before council. Any spending in the city has to follow your purchasing policy and your charter. So anything that you would normally be required to approve, whether it's a contract, whether it's a installment purchase, whether it's a bid, all of those things still need to come before you. But what we're doing with this, the ARPA and the budget, is purely a bookkeeping matter.
I know, but. Council Chair?
Go ahead, Councilman.
No, I just mentioned my resolution, and it would cost about $700,000 to give every hourly employee in the city a $2,000 bonus, which I'm still gonna fight for. What would you say I'd do to get that money? Where can I come up with that money? Or where could the city come up with that money? Because I was planning on that $10 million slush flex fund.
Sure. Well, like any other expenditure, council needs to communicate with the administration, and if the administration wants to do that or is willing to do that, they will make the decision whether or not to pay that.
Or what if it's a resolution approved by a city council?
I believe in that case, that the mayor would have to follow it unless he vetoes it. That's a legal question I'd have to leave to Mr. Farina.
Because, the ARPA money, it was intended for the people that suffered during COVID, basically. And I don't see any of that money going toward the people that suffered yet.
With all due respect, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Again, there's various categories for ARPA. We did a presentation. There were four categories, sorry. Revenue loss is one of them. Premium pay is its own category, and that's outside of the $10 million. So that's still under consideration. It was presented by the ARPA consultants that is one of the categories that we can look into. So just because the $10 million is being used for the revenue loss portion of unrestricted funds, it doesn't mean that there isn't still another bucket of money that we could use for the premium pay. And that's where your bonuses come from.
Well, he just said that.
Mariana,
the
just
rest-
one question for you.
Wait, let the councilman finish.
They were just saying that the 10 million is allocated or gone. and the rest of it, it will be allocated for water and sewer projects. That's what you just said that.
Again, there is various opportunities that we presented based on the survey results. Among those, premium pay was one of them.
So
So
it's not
again,
100%
none of those
accurate that all-
projects have been approved. None of it has been budgeted, as I explained earlier. As we start presenting these to all of you, that's when you get to decide what projects you're going to approve, whether it is bonuses or if it's just water and sewer projects.
How much do
I
we
would
have
just add,
left?
before you go further.
$14 million.
There
Yes, we have
were
14
two
million.
sessions held by the administration to get the input from the
Okay,
community on how to prioritize that spending. So there are results from the community that the administration has.
Well, I was just confused because he said that the rest of the money would be for water and sewer projects, which I'm not against, but that was a.
Again, there's $14 million. We can choose what we want to do with those $14 million
Councilman
still.
Bedun's got a question. Mariana, thank you for answering that. And I know when we had a question about the 7.8, we were told that it was not going to be used in this fiscal year. You said that to us. Now Brian is telling us,
It's,
I'm just confused. You know, I'm being told one thing, I'm being said another thing. So I just want you to know, Brian, I'm just gonna fill you in, Brian, and you seem like you're getting frustrated, and honestly, I'm not trying to frustrate you, I'm trying to understand you, because I'm being told something from the chief of staff, and I'm being told something by you. Am I like making this up?
No, I'm all with you.
so I guess the definition of use is what's being confusing, right? So the ARPA money is in our general fund currently. That's where it
Correct.
lives. The $10 million are there.
7.8.
Or 7.8, right? It's all there, everything that we've moved. That money, it's meant to be chipped away little by little with every single approval that you do for general fund expenses. You're never going to see a specific project for those $10 million. It also doesn't mean that it's all going to be spent this fiscal year. I don't even know if we touched any of it this year because, again, it is now part of your general fund
We have, you
as it
said?
was approved by your honorable council. And every penny that's spent out of the general fund is approved by you, whether it was this year or next year or I don't know, right? So that's precisely the point. It's just the $10 million is unrestricted money that has been converted into your general fund pool with some limitations, of course. So again, no additional payments for pension, et cetera. And we have to provide reports for our expenditures too, as we start spending bigger chunks of money out of it. But again, the $10 million is the most unrestricted way of us to spend it.
Okay. Next up, Councilwoman, go
Yeah,
ahead.
in summation, I just want to know, does that mean that we have another 14 million approximately left that has to be spent by 26?
Correct.
All right, that's what I
Okay.
want to know.
So councilmen and women, we got to wrap this up. So I just want to make sure if we're all on the same page, what we're instructing administration to
You
change.
didn't even finish all of these.
Yeah, we did.
We
No,
didn't
no,
talk
no,
about
no.
CDBG.
I'm gonna state some of mine, and then I'm gonna allow you guys to add some if that's what we all choose, and then we're gonna let administration know. If we're all in agreement, then we'll go ahead and take the budget to a vote, the resolution to a vote.
Just, Council Chair, before we move on,
Go ahead.
and when we were talking to Mariana, the treasurer, she mentioned that we did spend some of the money. Any idea how much did we spend so far? Yeah, please.
So the total of 10 million that was in general fund is unrestricted. So right now, your account balance for checking for general fund is around 3 million, and your pool counts 3 million, so that's 6 million. So you know you've already spent some of that, but not only that, you've had revenue that the city has made in the meantime, that is part of that number that's left, and also the shared revenue that we received in May. So that's another million. So you could see when you do the math, that yes, you've been spending down your 10 million.
Is there a way for you to find out exactly how much probably we spent from that 10 million?
Yeah. If,
You have a guesstimate?
oh, I'd have to do a cash flow report for you, which I
I
just
mean,
did
probably
one,
just
but-
need to add the revenue and just take it out
Yeah,
of
so
the.
your revenue right now is around 600,000 monthly, because it's a slower time for the city government monthly. And then you had shared revenue come in May, that was $1 million. And then that would leave you, what was left of that 10 million. So, you can figure that out. You're looking at what, since May?
I mean, whatever you just mentioned, that's
yeah.
about 8.2 million in revenue.
Yeah, yeah. So you have
Okay.
been spending it down.
Gentlemen, ladies.
Just before we move
Okay,
on, I need just
we
to
gotta wrap
answer
this up.
Council Pro Tem about the
Let's have him talk.
Just
first,
about
and
the
you
cable money, I think we decided last time to drop it down to 35 or 25,000.
next. He's referenced, the councilman is referencing the media.
Yeah.
So why don't I put it on, I'm gonna have everybody not take this to a vote. It's not an official vote, but we're gonna agree as to what changes we're gonna make, and then we'll send it to the administration and we'll vote on the budget. So let me start with some of the ones that I had mentioned earlier. The water rates I'd mentioned, I'd like to see that completely separately. So are we all in general, council
Yes.
members, in
Yes.
agreement?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
Okay, so that's gonna be put at a public hearing, study session. The rates are not, the water rates are not gonna be raised until we've had a discussion about it. Okay,
So they're
so
not gonna be added to the.
they're not, it's gonna be taken out of the budget.
Water
Okay.
removed.
Water removed. Next one, the 14 million. Are all the council members comfortable enough with what was stated to us via administration?
Absolutely.
And, Plant Moran?
Yes.
Absolutely.
In
You're talking
general,
about
everybody okay with that?
The 14.3.
Yeah, the 14 million.
Honestly, I'm not comfortable with it. I know Brian was a little frustrated, but, I mean, Councilman,
It's-
Even the people in the audience are understanding it.
The
That's okay, but
14,
he's not,
they should run for office.
it's, think of it as a loan. You're paying your loan back, like your
Yeah.
car payment. It's just a loan. We're paying it back with the bond funds. And that's why it's not showing that you have revenue to cover it, because it's being covered by a loan. So you own a car for $45,000 and you pay $500 a month on that. But that $45,000 isn't in it's not income, it's a loan.
and then between you, yourself as a controller, the treasurer's sitting here, administration's here, and then we got Plant Moran. This follows all accounting guidelines, correct? Municipal
Yes.
guidelines.
Yes.
And it's also in the water part, so that's coming out,
Correct,
correct?
to make sure. Brian, are you officially publicly stating yes?
Yes.
Okay.
It follows accounting.
Okay, so that's that. Next one, CDBG budget. What do we decide on that?
Remove it.
What's the end result on that?
Just take it out.
Having it as a part of the
No, haven't-
budget, or are we gonna wait until the regular numbers come out, the official
Please
numbers come out?
don't take it out of the budget.
Was it in the budget last year?
Yes,
Was it in the
Okay.
budget before?
yes.
Okay.
It's gonna stay in the budget.
But the number, hold on, but the numbers according to the CDBG director are not the official and correct numbers, A, and B, his final budget will not be voted on until August. So the question is, why are we adding numbers that are, I don't want to use the words false, but not the final numbers?
Inaccurate.
You have to serve multiple masters related to grant funding. So when Mr. Jamal is talking about his budget, he is talking about the agreement that he has with HUD. When I say CDBG fund, I am talking about the fund of the city, the part that goes in your financial statements. What is in the proposed budget is wages for the CDBG fund. If this budget for CDBG is taken out, then Mr. Jamal can't come to work on July 1st. Other projects of CDBG cannot be done either, even if you've already approved them, because you're not allowed to spend a dollar that hasn't been appropriated.
Okay. And I spoke with Mr. Jamal today, and he did mention that him and Brian Camilleri spoke, and he is in agreement in general with this, but I just wanted you to go on public record as far as what you're stating. Okay, so that's at this point out. Next one raises, gentlemen, ladies, or lady. The raises for the different directors, I had made a proposal that we put that on hold at this point until further notice,
And you could do a
and we
budget
have a
amendment.
further discussion with additional contracts coming up.
So I would like to address this because I think it's important for folks to understand. Contractual obligations and your budget are not tied together.
Correct.
It's two separate things.
Correct.
So the budget is authorizing expenditures up to X dollar amount. But if you want to give raises, or if you want to negotiate for higher wages to your employees, that has to happen through collective bargaining. The budget doesn't make it happen.
100%.
We agree.
But at the same time, we could do a budget amendment at a later date, let's say in the fall hypothetically, and at that particular point, not only can those raises be given, they could also, if we so choose or vote on, they could be prorated backwards to today, if that's what we so chose.
Yes.
And no, we are not doing labor negotiations. At the same time, I'm going to make my personal statement, and I'll go to the electric chair with it. We gotta negotiate better with the clerical workers, with DPW. These are the guys and gals that are out there every single day busting their butts. And in my opinion, I'll just leave it at, we got to negotiate fairly. I'll just leave it at that and pay well. And I've already had a conversation with the controller on that. Okay, so, council members, are we in agreement that the raises are not completely canceled, but they're going to be put on hold, possibly prorated backwards to today's date, if we so choose, roughly September?
Council Chair, we're agreeing to remove the raises on this
Correct,
budget.
today.
Correct.
But what I'm telling the directors and administration, we're not necessarily completely canceling them out. They are still in consideration. And for those that are not familiar with prorating it back, if we're going to give just, let's just use a hypothetical number of $1 raise, it'd be possibly, provided legally can be done, provided, obviously, everything would have to go through Corporation Council for approval to make sure it can legally be done. We'll deal with it at that particular point when we address it.
Council
Okay.
Chair,
So are the raises off?
So
I just want to make sure.
basically, you're saying all the proposed salaries for 2023,
Salary
24
raises.
salaries, yeah, they're all on hold.
Raises.
Raises, yep. The
Yeah, not
proposed-
salaries.
The proposed.
The proposed raises. Okay,
For the salary people.
correct. And are all council members in general in agreement on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
No.
okay. So it's not a vote, but okay. We'll take that. Okay, next two we're good.
General.
Anything else? The next one that I know of is the media. There was a proposal by Councilman Ahmad to put $50,000 budget.
35.
Well, it was originally 50 for media for council members, and I'm not going to rehash it all over again. He earlier stated he's okay with about 35,000. Would you like that to be a part of the budget with administration?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's too high.
I do too.
I think it's way too high.
It's
I don't
too
think it's
high.
gonna cost, I think we're gonna have a whole lot of money left over, or else we're gonna go out there and we're just going to mass media, and it's gonna look like we're trying to showcase ourselves,
Okay.
okay?
So on
I mean,
that-
if I'm on TV every week doing this, what's that tell people?
You're being, okay, one second. So, nothing from the audience, please. Okay, so Councilman Ahmad, I'm going to give you an opportunity, a minute, maximum two, to present your case, why you want this.
I mean, basically, Council Chair, like I said before, is something for all the council members, that's not for Councilman Ahmad, just to showcase the city. I mean, we need to move the city forward. We need to invite people to come invest in the city, people to move into the city, basically showcase the city like every other city that the way council people does. So if you think 35,000 is a lot, I mean, I'm fine with whatever. I mean, 25,
Okay,
whatever
Council-
you guys want, I'm okay
Let
with
me
it.
ask this, let me ask the council chair this question. So we budget 20, say we budget 50,000. If you want to use a dime of that, it's still got to come before us.
Correct.
Hey, now, he's talking about even amount per council member.
Well, see, I don't like that per council member. It's either all or none.
So let's pretend it's,
That's just like legal.
let's pretend it's $7,000, what the council member's proposal is, 1,000 per council member.
Yeah, but it still has to be voted on us, and you can't just say, well, it was approved for me to use, so I'm gonna use it. No, it's either all or none. Because if you start putting it per person, then you're gonna say, well, it was approved for me, so I'm gonna use it. It's not, that's not the way this works.
So what are you proposing, Council Pro Tem?
So what I'm saying is, okay, so we put a amount of money, it still has to be voted on us when you're gonna use it. You can just say, well, tomorrow I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna have this video shot at, X road and X road, and I'm just gonna do it. You can't do it. You're gonna have to bring it before council, say this is gonna cost us $2,500 to put this on our cable network, okay? And it has to be approved.
Okay,
So that's why I'm saying it's a lot of money for really, for what?
Okay, so we've rehashed this a lot, so I just want to go in general, I'll
If it's
state
gonna pass
myself.
the budget, I'll put it in.
Yeah, so, so I said personally, this is
Not that much.
this is not something, although my background or my degree's in marketing, I wasn't big on this, but I said if most of the council members would like it, I'm willing to vote yes on this. But
Hey,
definitely
me
not
too.
50,000, definitely not
No,
35.
well, just
I'd have preferred around 30.
Off the table, so.
Right, so it's off the table?
No, the 50 is off the table. Are you okay with 25? 25?
No.
And we put it with 25, but again, we have to vote on every time you go to use the
That's
money.
fine. I mean,
That's all I
know how
want.
this works.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Councilwoman, you said
I'd rather see some of that money go to the police or the firemen. We
have
need, we need more of both, and I'd rather spend it in that direction.
Okay, so one thing we can do, if all council members just address this
We're
one.
at 25
I'm just
right
thinking out
Let's
loud.
put it in.
Okay, so
Put it in
25,000.
25K?
But any type of proposal would have to come before the council body for approval?
Always.
Always, it has to.
Okay, so are all council members with agreement with 25,000?
I think it's too high.
Well, I'm agree.
I'll go with that.
I'm gonna go with it because I want this budget.
If we want the
I
budget
mean, it's
passed.
10 minutes to 7. My
Was there
study
any-
session was supposed to start an hour ago.
Was there anything else per council members that they had major, and one, Councilman Wenzel, the one with possibly ARPA money, that's something we could address, of course, at a later date with the resolution.
I also have that,
And-
that,
go ahead.
that
Yeah.
resolution, Mr.
Okay,
Wenzel.
is there anything else council members are concerned about on the budget?
I just want to regress what we have here. We have the water rates.
Water rates are gonna be
Are going to
separate.
be removed. The 14 million was
Addressed.
explained. We have the money from the CSO bond. That money is just sitting there. It's going to be paid from the CSO bond. We have the CDBG budget will remain inside. The raises across the board are going to be put on hold, so it's not going to be added to the budget. And $25 million, or
25,000.
25,000 for media. I think
Was there anything else from council members that had a concern?
Council Chair?
Yes.
So after we remove the water portion of this budget, there won't be that $14 million difference at the bottom, at the end of the budget. Is that correct?
It would be a larger difference because you'd be reducing your revenue.
Reducing the revenue. So can you
But
explain that?
sure, so that 14 million is X minus Y, revenues minus expenses. And included in those expenses are $16.5 million of capital projects coming out of the bond proceeds. So if we reduce, and I'm pulling a number out of thin air just as an example. If we take $1 million out of the revenue because we're going to ignore the raises that will eventually be proposed, then that 14.5 at the bottom will become 15.5. One less dollar of revenue means our law, I don't want to use the word loss, means the difference between revenue and expense will be 15.5 instead of 14.5.
So the projects will remain in the budget?
Correct.
But the revenue will.
Okay.
Correct.
And then the last thing, for the treasurer's recommendation, and I agree with her, and the only reason I want to do this one first is because in the event the budget does not pass, I don't want those tax levies to not be voted on. So if you're all in agreement, we're going to vote on that separately before the budget.
Yes.
Council Chair, I have
Yes.
one more thing. Is it possible to remove those projects out of the budget and keep that with the water separately, the projects and the
How
revenue?
can you move them out?
No?
No,
No,
it's, they're water projects and the bond was issued for water.
All right.
That was an increase, that was a raise. So, just to clarify for one of the council members, I just had a paper passed over to me, with specifically the HR director, and this is no reflection on a particular person's name, this is based on a position. That amount, the $95,000 new salary would not go into effect, correct?
That's correct.
It would not?
No, it will not.
Right. Okay.
Council Chair, what about some new positions that were created? Are they still going to be
So
in the budget?
the positions that were created, to the best of my recollection, was 3 of them. One of them was in HR, one of them was in the building department to be able to assess different projects much quicker, and one of them was an additional attorney. I personally am okay with those positions, but I'm speaking on my behalf.
You know, I'll tell you, we don't approve this HR, we're gonna lose our HR director.
That's right.
And then we're really gonna suffer. You think you got problems now, you wait till that happens, okay? When you gotta pay $130,000 for a HR director, okay? Just think about this, what you're asking for, because the grass really isn't greener on the other side of the fence, okay? It truly isn't, okay? So, just think about what's gonna happen if somebody decides, I'm gonna walk, okay?
Councilman, just to be fair, we've said that these raises will be
I understand what you
readdressed
say.
in a couple, 2, 3, 4 months.
I'm just
So for
telling
the-
you.
I get it.
Just,
So
when,
for
when
those
it
directors,
if it happens, I'm here to tell you, I told you so.
okay, got you. All right, anything else that's of concern to the council members? Because we're going to go ahead and take this budget to a vote. Any other concerns, comments? Okay, so the first amendment on the budget would be, the tax levies are gonna be separate, and Corporation Council, whatever way you prefer us to have it read, we'll go ahead and read it that way. We're gonna go ahead and vote on those completely separately, because that's how all council members want it. And then we're gonna go ahead and vote on the budget based on the pre-agreed upon changes that we've made during
1, 2,
today's
3,
meeting.
4, 5 changes.
Okay? So on the tax levy, how would you like to have that read where we're excluding it from the budget? Just state it from beginning to end
Each
pursuant
one
to
pick
section.
one, start one end
Okay.
of the other and go.
All right, well, no, I mean, let's have one of the council members read the tax levy from beginning to end under section 1.0. Anybody want to read it? I've got it right here.
Yeah, where is it?
1.0.
Okay. I make a
Okay.
well,
Council, wait, let me just make sure everybody's, okay, go ahead.
make a motion pursuant to section 10.1 of the Dearborn Heights City
Council
City
Chair?
Charter.
Yes, I'm sorry, one second.
You already have a motion on the table.
Right.
For the total
So he's going to
thing.
amend the motion to
Okay, gotcha.
exclude this one
Gotcha,
and read
okay.
it separately.
So we're gonna
You go ahead and
amend.
state that, please.
Yeah, I want to amend the
Amend.
budget.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, to include,
No, to separately.
to
vote on-
separately vote on a tax levy with the, and not together with the budget.
Correct. Okay, so now go
So
ahead.
now pursuant to section 10.1 of the Dearborn Heights City Charter, the tax levy for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, shall be composed of the constituent rates of the purpose and with estimated yields described as follows, based on aggregated of taxable assessed values of $1 billion, 639,183,665 for the city of Dearborn Heights, or as may be subsequently certified and amended net of the tax increment capture.
Second. We don't have to
And
read
you
them all,
want-
do we?
We don't need to say, now, we're gonna,
Madam Clerk, does it say just as stipulated or as stated in item 11A? Okay, so as stipulated,
as stipulated in 11A, okay?
and then just say the total amount.
And
Total.
the total amount, and I'll read them all off. General operations, 7.8460. Estimated levy will be $11,733,562. Police and fire operating, 1.8460, and those are mills. $2,760,648. Sanitation, PA 298, 2.0595, $3,080,009. Sanitation voted, 0.9229, $1,380,178. Library, 1.7245, $2,578,952. Public Act 345, Public Safety, 6.8734, which comes out to $10,735,897. So the total mills is 21.2723, and the estimated levy is $32,269,246.
And these are the rates per thousand.
Need a cup of water?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I need more
So
than a cup of water.
motion made to amend 11A by Councilman Muscat and seconded by Councilwoman Breyer.
You also want to read,
Any other discussions on that?
you want to read on the
Well,
changes?
no, those are going to be on the budget part. Those are going to be on the budget.
This is for just.
Okay, this is just for this.
Okay. And seconded by Councilwoman Nancy Breyer. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is specifically the budget excluding the tax levies. Go ahead, Councilman. Or are you going to be, you've read the first one, so go ahead.
Yeah, I might as well read it. Well, I already did the 11A.
Right, but this time you took out the tax
Yeah,
levies. So just go ahead and read it again.
I moved.
Excluding the tax levies that were already voted
I
on.
move that the Dearborn Heights City Council adopt a resolution of the Council of the City of Dearborn Heights, Michigan, adopting the operating budget excluding the water rates, okay?
Wait, I'm sorry, 1 second. Oh, excluding the what? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to put that in there, and excluding the millage rates
levies that were already
the
voted.
the levies that were already voted into in an act. Michigan adopting the operating budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024, as outlined in 11A.
Okay, but we gotta add to that, the media accounts for council members up to $25,000.
Adding a media accounts of $25,000 and removing the raises to be voted on a separate time,
Future date, yeah.
future date.
And leaving the CDBG.
And keeping the CDBG intact in the budget,
As presented,
as presented.
okay.
Is that okay?
Yep, so a motion made by Councilman Muscat on 11A. Any second on that?
I'll
Any
second it.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Breyer. Any discussion on that?
Council Chair, so I'm assuming we're taking out the legal representation for city council?
At this particular point, as we speak, it is not on there, based on the multiple comments I had amongst all you guys during this session. But that doesn't necessarily mean we can't bring that forward at a later date.
Council Chair, I just want to tell you that I actually, I entertained an attorney on it. He advised me that it would not be the best thing to do, that we have a corporation counsel. You know, look, I've reached out to corporation counsel. I don't think I've ever had an issue. Or anytime I've reached out to him, I think he was able to respond. But an actual attorney said that it would actually be a conflict of interest, and it's probably not the best thing to you know, for the sake of morale and whatnot.
And
So
let's leave that for a later date so that we could go ahead and get this
Council
thing
Chair,
voted on.
point of order.
And I
Yes.
also.
Point of order. We spent an hour and a half on this.
I just wanted to make it
And we
clear.
all agreed on things and disagreed.
Council
It's
Chair?
time to vote.
Yeah, this is not a
No, I
part
know,
of
Council, I was just
This is
clarifying
not a
that. I
study
wasn't saying
session
that's
on a
what I
budget
wanted.
anymore.
Okay, Councilman.
I was just making it clear.
We will be, yes, we will be
Yeah.
potentially addressing that at a later date. And I would recommend if it's something that's important to you or whoever it is, just lobby different council members so we can have it discussed later.
One other thing is the 3 new positions. I'm in favor of one in comptroller's office.
Well, come on.
Okay,
I mean, we've spent an hour and a half on this.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, Councilman.
It's what I believe in. It's what I think. I mean,
Councilman, let him speak, please.
Go ahead. You know what? Call me back in when you guys are done. 'Cause I gotta go to the restroom, because I've heard this 15,000 times.
Okay, go ahead,
I'm
Councilman.
just saying, you know, we talked about it, and I'm against 2 of
Wait,
them.
hold on one second. Audience, please. Go ahead, Councilman.
Anybody that doesn't want to hang around, you can go home anyway. I mean, this is city council business. You can watch it on YouTube if you want. No, I'm just want to make it clear. If there's something I'm not in favor of, I've got my right to voice my opinion on it.
Correct.
And, you know, I mean, I'm approved the budget the way it is, except for these 2 new positions. And, you know, in our court, I'm drawing a blank on the court position that we're creating, oh gosh, what is it?
Paralegal. board?
Paralegal. I mean, we've done without a paralegal forever. We've never had a paralegal.
We need one.
Okay, so what you will, you've had the opportunity to be able to say your piece. At this point, we're gonna go ahead and vote on the budget. If it's decided
Okay.
that others agree with you, then you can vote no.
Well, once we do it, it's hired. Okay, yeah, okay. I just want to state my opinion.
No, I understand. I understand. Okay, so motion made by Councilman Muscat, seconded by Councilwoman Breyer. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, budget passes. Next item on the agenda is members of the public. First of all, let's have comments from council members. No comments from council members.
Did we vote yet?
Yes, we did.
It passed. It passed.
Passed. Okay?
My vote was gonna be a yes, just for the record.
Next item, any announcements from administration?
Am I
Okay.
administration?
Well, yeah, you'd be council clerk.
Can I get Council Chair, could I get a recording of who voted on what?
Everybody voted yes. It was a yes vote unanimously, 6-0. Okay? Next item,
5-0.
there was no.
5, yeah, 5-0. Bob's not here.
5-0.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5-0, sorry about that. Next item,
No,
go ahead,
6-0.
Councilwoman, no, 5.
Bob's
Well,
not here, you were in the
said yes
restroom.
after.
Bob's not here.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Okay, the 4th Thursday of the month, and now I've forgotten what day, what the date is, but we will be having Mr. Knizik, our county commissioner, will be at the South Dearborn Heights Civic Association
day is
meeting, 7 o'clock. Have you got a calendar?
What day is that?
It's the fourth Thursday. I
Thursday.
think it's early, like the 22nd, if I'm
The
not mistaken.
22nd, yes.
At 3335 South Beach Daily,
Sorry,
7
what's wrong?
PM. And he'll be there, and we can talk to him about all the extra money we need and why he's not getting it for us. And we will have one more meeting that I know of for the Ecorse Creek Commission the day before, on Wednesday, the 21st, 6 PM at that same location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other announcements from administration?
Council Chair?
Councilman?
I'm sorry, I missed the announcements from, comments from City Council, but I wanted to give my kudos to Wayne County Commissioner David Kniezek. I was called this morning by several residents that said a traffic light had been hit yesterday by a garbage truck and brought down closer to the ground, and it was hit several times this morning. And the residents called several departments in the city and in the state, and with no results of anybody coming out to fix it. And they put flares out in the middle of the intersection. This is a busy intersection for all the
Where's this
schools
at?
in there. Annapolis and Monroe, right on the corner of Annapolis and Monroe. Major intersection for all the high school and the elementary schools and the junior highs in that area. And I called and I got a referral number, and I texted Commissioner Kniezek with the information, and within a half hour, there was a truck there, Wayne County truck, to fix that light. So that was a great job by him, and kudos to him, and my hats off to him, too.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we're going to go ahead and have public comments. Please come on up. You will have 3 minutes. Please state your city, street, and name.
Gary Mayatki, Plainfield Street, Dearborn Heights.
Can I,
Just
Wait,
one
hold
thing.
on, one quick second, let's just get,
Start the clock.
we have our technology director here.
getting 2 minutes?
Got to move it
right?
to 3.
3.
3 minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, ready?
All right, very
Fine.
good. Thank you. I just wanted to say I applaud the decision not to end up, to hold the pay raises for salaried employees and non-union employees until either one, the collective bargaining agreements are settled, or you bargain to impasse. I think this is important because you need to have, to ensure equity and fairness between all city employees, not just the people on the top and the people on the bottom. You need to treat all employees as part of a team. That means if one part of the team is rewarded, the other parts of the team are rewarded as well. And based on these points, I think it's extremely important to recognize that, frankly, you as a body lose your leverage if you do not insist on this at this point. Everyone says that the budget can end up being amended. That requires a vote of the council. Otherwise, the budget remains as it is. And the mayor can always veto any action that you end up taking. So anyone who says we can just, it's a fluid document, we can always change it, that's really misrepresenting the real state of affairs.
We can also override that veto. Make sure
Yes,
you-
but you were split
Just-
4 to 3, Councilman.
But still, we can
Right.
override so we need to mention that too.
Well, you need to mention that, but thank you. Do I have some time back for?
Yeah,
I stopped it.
Very good, thank you. I would also note a couple of things here. One, as I was saying, you control the budget, all right? So when Mr. Camilleri comes up for Plant Moran and says, well, you would need to do stuff with the administration, no. You control the budget and the budget process. You give direction to the administration. That is your role. That is what we as taxpayers expect you to do, particularly where you've ended up having a budget that has been, in terms of full-time employees, increasing, and that's where you're going to end up really hurting us in the long run. You need to end up watching those full-time employees in terms of adding positions. 3 positions. Councilman Wenzel is correct. This is a real concern. You did not have them before. Really raises an issue with respect to that. And then just a few things as public service announcements. One, you can't give bonuses after the fact for services that are performed. It violates the Michigan Constitution and the city charter to end up trying to do so. 2, you need to end up recognizing that when you end up giving an appropriation with regard to something that's in the budget, the mayor sets the compensation within that. So unless you put a restriction with respect to that in the budget, in essence, when you end up approving a line item in terms of a salary, the mayor can end up using that amount and set the compensation within that pursuant to the city charter. Just some helpful information, hopefully.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One second. Ready?
That's a 10 for
Go ahead.
Rachel LaPointe, Merrick Street, Dearborn Heights. So I want to sort of point out that in the MMRMA contract, I had it available to me that you approved last August. The Elite Sports Building Ice Arena is not listed in our property list. Warren Valley is, and it breaks it down by like building. So it'll say like the banquet hall, the garage, the shed for the carts or whatever. The Elite Sports Ice Arena is not listed. And it's not listed under Canfield. Canfield's building is its own thing. It does not mention the ice arena. It's not listed in the parks either. I don't know who's responsible for looking into that and double checking that, but that's on you guys.
Okay, so on that, when you're done, give her your name and number, and she'll have somebody from administration look into it and call you if they need to. I assume, Chief of Staff, you heard that question? Okay.
That was the August 9th meeting in the backup is what I was referring to as the copy of the contract. So maybe it's perhaps been fixed already. I'm still confused about the ARPA funds. There's 10 million in the general fund. That part I get, totally agree, that's going towards those costs, that it's very unrestricted, fine. But there's still 10 million in the budget for this current fiscal year in the water department. And then there's not the extra 4.3. So I'm still a little bit confused about what's going on, because if we're not planning on putting it into the budget until we're planning on spending it, then there shouldn't be 10 million in the water department. If we're putting it in there that we received it this year and those monies are in, then it should reflect the 14.3. I spoke to Ms. King about it briefly in the hallway, so she was gonna look into it. But I just wanted to point out that there's still 20 million in the budget. We're still missing that 4.3 as it stands right now. And I'm still very confused about how that's supposed to work. If we're not supposed to be putting it in the budget until we're planning on spending it, that it should be there next year, then the budget should have really been updated to reflect that in terms of the revenues. It seems like there's just some sort of confusion there about whether it should be recorded when we received the funds versus when we're planning on spending the funds. And I'm not sure if Brian, Mr. Camilleri would want to answer that tonight for everybody, or if he needs to kind of look into that too. So I'm just still kind of confused on that one. And then it seemed like with the bond stuff with the water department, and I know I didn't hear everything, but to me, it sounded like we got that money in prior years. That's why it shows that deficit. So it's like if it would have been recorded 2-3 years ago, it doesn't show up as a revenue now, perhaps. Something like that. I don't know. But it's like that money was already there. It doesn't show up as a revenue right now, but it shows up as an expense. So that's why it looks like there's a deficit. So I don't know if maybe that would help you guys feel a little bit better about that. It did make sense to me, what they were explaining. So thank you. Have a good night.
For those in the audience, I just wanted to state in regards to the study session on blight, ordinance, et cetera, that will be right after the public comments. We'll be taking a 3, 4, 5 minute break and then starting that particular session. But obviously, our budget discussion took a little longer than anticipated, so we'll be going to that next. Next up, sir, name, city, street.
Good evening, Hassan Bazzi, Sheehan Highway.
Dearborn Heights.
Dearborn Heights. It is a
It hasn't
highway.
been officially changed the name, but
I mean, maybe we need to change the name. We need to change the name. So I want to address one thing here. In front of my house, there's 2 big potholes, not potholes, like the whole slab was broken down since last year. Caused a lot of problems for the drivers. I mean, us, one of them. I have pictures for that. So what I did, go through the chain of command. I took pictures. I sent an email. Actually, last year, I made some phone calls to the DPW, whatever. I mean, deaf ears. This year in March, I took a pictures, I put an email together, and I sent it to the DPW. I got a copy of the email here, and I sent copy to the mayor back then. And since March, try to keep up. Finally, I reached out to Mr. Ray Muscat. I want to thank you, Ray, for stepping in. It was a major disaster. So a company came, it was hired by the city, and they fixed the two potholes a week later, or I think a week later, and thanks for Mr. Hassan Saab. He followed up with this. We found out that they didn't put gravel, they didn't put the right bars in there, so they ended up coming back and breaking the slab again.
Is this the one that Mr. Hassan was saying he would pay to get it out?
Correct.
Yes, it's in front of my resident on Sheehan. So, first of all, I mean, we have a DPW. I don't know who's in charge to this. I mean, why do, as a citizen, that we have to go through the trouble and we put an email, we call, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. I mean, I have to reach to one of the city council. I mean, I recommend this to the citizen. Don't call any department from now on. Call you guys.
Don't say that.
No. I want to say that. This is a serious
phone rings
issue.
enough.
Mr. Council Chairman, please, give me another minute because I want to get to my point in case. This is not fair. We're talking about the budget. We're talking about the new hires, new positions, and new this and new that. We all live in Dearborn Heights. You guys, the streets are terrible. It's the worst it's been. I've been in the city since 2000. The last 3 years. You guys drive in this city. What the hell is going on here? We are a taxpayer. We demand from now on. Let me tell you something. Whoever got to hold the position, it doesn't matter who it is. Either you guys do your job right or pack your stuff and go home. There's elections are coming. It's not right. I decided, my neighbor across the street, they just bought a house in Northville. I felt so sad that they are leaving. They've been my neighbors forever. We convince our youth, our kids to stay around, our family. I'm not going to let anybody drag me out of this city here. This is home for us. I have a neighbor, his name is Mike. He's about 70. He was going to leave, and he told me, Hassan, because of you, because of the way that you guys treat each other, I'm not leaving. Yeah, I know. We need to get our act together. Before we talk about budget, before we talk about positions, you guys got to go drive the streets. It's not right. What the hell? What are we doing here? So, Ray, thank you for stepping in, and Mr. Saab, thank you for following up with that. And I ask whoever coming new or you guys staying here, we need to readjust. We need to maintain the city. The machines that they clean the city, I don't see them. I go every day in front of my house. I have to use the blower. I start from my neighbor to my next neighbor. Enough is enough. Thank you for the time, extra time. And I hope that you guys look into it. Thank you.
Just a little update, Mr. Holm, before you go up. Just a little update in regards to the comments that you made, Mr. Bazzi.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure that this company does not get paid.
Right.
So I'd like to address that. So you'll be able to speak. Mr. Holm wants to, but let me just quick second before you start though. So first of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Saab for coming in at a council meeting and commenting as to what he seen projected was possibly potentially happening. And the only reason I'm saying possibly potentially, I don't know for a fact. This is not my world. I spoke right after the council meeting with Mr. Saab and heard his concerns. And I explained to him, this is not my field of expertise, but let me call on the experts. I called one of the directors that's in charge of that particular, and you know who I'm referencing, and he said it was just that particular section that had gone wrong. I think, Mr. Bazzi, you were there at the time I was speaking with Mr. Saab on the cell phone. But all the rest of them were more than likely done right. I honestly and truly, and I'm being blunt, didn't feel super confident with that answer. So I contacted the mayor, I told him about the concern, and then we spoke with Director Rick Watland, who is in the process right now of working with, I believe, Villanova. I don't know if I have the name correct.
Yes.
But they're going to be checking almost all the work that was done by that previous company. Hopefully, like they said, and I quote, it was just that one spot that he caught, but I don't know until it's checked over. It's being checked over by our building director to make sure that it is done right. but I want to publicly thank Mr. Saab for finding this out.
No problem, you're welcome.
So now, you're going to go
Hassan
ahead?
Saab, John Daly, Dearborn Heights. So, another reference to this is over on Highview also, the same exact thing. But the city's closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, correct? There's no supervision or any projects going on in the city for anybody to inspect. They're pouring Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know, so when, you know, I got multiple projects I'm working on throughout the city. And this guy, the contractor that we're talking about in particular, he noticed me in my pickup truck, but didn't notice me in any of my cars. So when I seen him pouring, I got more pictures over on Highview and Haas, same exact thing. These are manhole covers that are sunk in. They put them up, no gravel, nothing, just pouring concrete. City's closed Friday and Saturday. There's no reason for them to be pouring on the weekends. I asked that the city council withhold any of their payments. They should not get paid. Those rebars they should be epoxied and rebarred in, and the curbs should be rebarred in too, because in the wintertime, when water gets under those, they're gonna pop right out of the ground.
So with my conversation with you on the phone, I said I would vote no on this until I'm assured by the experts. And I'm not an expert. I only know what concrete is,
Well, I am
but
an
that's
expert
it.
in this field. Now,
Right.
and I'm telling you,
But with
and
due
I did
respect-
spoke, and we did, and we spoke with Rick, and he
Correct.
got, but the thing is that there has to be, you can't just pay somebody, say, here, we did something without picture proof or anything.
Right. I agree.
You guys, you know, you can take a metal detector out there and check if there's rebar or
And that's
not.
what Rick is going to be doing.
Right.
I had a conversation with him. Obviously, Rick is our city
It's a
expert.
pretty large contract that they have. And by the way, their equipment is disastrous. Mr. Bazzi, you can ask him, his street was black from the oil their machines leak.
Right.
You can't have that. You're trying to repair a pothole. You're not trying to make the street black. It's all concrete.
And through my conversation, what was said to me is, it is not correct for Mr. Saab to be following him around and pointing
Well, I'm
out
a
different
taxpayer.
things. And this is why I retort with that. If you're doing nothing wrong, then you should have nothing to worry about.
But I want to add something to the comment. When Mr. Bazzi was standing there that day, the guy himself said, I'm like, well, why don't you put crushed concrete? Why don't you compact it? Why isn't there rebar and epoxied in? He's like, we're going to have to do that. The city said we're going to have to do that. Then he corrected himself.
Why are they still with us?
Exactly.
So again.
But, and then also, for the record, I did some research on the guy too. He's not licensed.
Oh, no.
So he's using somebody else's
Okay, then
license.
that's very concerning. So
Thank
I
you.
hope for chief of staff, I know the mayor is not here, but
And a
this
corporation
continue
council.
to
And
be looked
corporation
into.
council.
But I'm going to say it publicly. I, for one, I'm going to vote no until I'm comfortable enough with administration and the quote-unquote experts, which is the building director, to assure me this is done properly.
Council Chair.
So go ahead, Councilman.
I've already made up my mind when the bill comes through, I'm not going to approve it.
Yeah, I've already made up my mind.
I did
I'm
this, I saw this when Mr. Bazey contacted me and I went to his house. I saw how bad this slab of cement was. I was just in shock. He could tell you how shocked I was. And I went by and I saw when they tore it out and nothing was prepped properly. And I do believe, if I'm correct, and if somebody can correct me if I'm stating the wrong thing, the curbs have to be 17 inches deep, and they weren't even dug out at all at that point. Now, I know that they did repair it. My understanding, I repaired properly this time, but my concern is all the others. Now, I've even witnessed here right around the block where the re-rod is not sticking out. They'll end up having to drill holes and epoxy those rods together, and which makes it the job a little bit more difficult. It would seem like that they would do that while they're pouring concrete, which would make it much easier to settle in. But I think we've already beat this horse.
Yep. Before you begin, Ms. Ferentz, I just want to compliment you. I've watched you on the planning commission. And whether you vote in ways that I agree or disagree with you, I just want to commend you for having conversations and debates and disagreements. And in anybody that does that, I love, because that's what creates good decisions. So again, maybe we don't always agree, and that's okay. But you do your homework and you do a good job. I've always wanted to tell you that, and I've had this opportunity.
Thank you, Dave.
With that in mind, name,
Well,
city,
you know,
street, please.
now I'm going to be really winning friends and influencing people. I got to tell you, it's
Name-
7:28.
name and street,
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry, Lisa Oshansky, West Pleasant Ridge. It's 7:28. There are people who left their offices, did not have dinner with their families, maybe skipped dinner to be here for a blight meeting that was supposed to start at 6 o'clock. There are,
6:45, we had it on. 6:45, no, 6:45, I know exactly what we said.
yeah,
100%.
it was 6 o'clock on Facebook is what
Then
we were
that, I
advised.
don't know, that I
So,
can't comment on.
yeah, okay, well, that makes me feel
was
better
at
about it.
6:45.
However, after months of conversation on this budget, there are at least 4 people sitting there who should be ashamed of themselves. Because the questions that you have asked should have been directed to whoever's doing this now, Wade Trim, Honigan, whoever is doing
Plant
our.
Moran.
Plant Moran this year, or this quarter, or not this quarter, this year. You know, but the reality is, those should have been directed to them. It's very clear to me that you people are all either independently employed and entrepreneurial, or you worked in positions where you did not do budgeting. You do not wait until the vote to get major questions resolved. Again, write them down, get them resolved, get them answered, come in, take a vote. This was really disrespectful to the people who came and who gave up other things tonight to be here on a topic that they cared about. And we talked before, you know, and I tell Dave, you know, you do a great, I'm sorry, Council Chair, that you do a great job herding the cats, but we need to do a better job. And that is the responsibility of every single person who's sitting there, and many of you are going to be running for election again. And I can tell you, from sitting in the audience, being on Zoom, being active in the audience and in the community, I'm not only speaking for myself.
Thank you.
Hassan, you and public activists, I want to tell you guys thank you for approving the budget. Good job. You guys worked on it good today. I just want to ask everybody that is leasing a property in the city of Dearborn Heights, I just want, you know, you guys to treat them equal, you know, not because you have a personal hate for somebody to sit there and take it on everybody else. So, you know, there's things that's going on that's really bothering me, you know, like you got, like Elite Sports. He mows his own lawn. Why? He's paying taxpayers' dollars. For what reason? You guys are supposed to mow the lawn. She said there's insurance. There's no insurance there. You guys did a closed session. You violated the Public Act meeting. For what? What's the closed session about?
We've had many,
Listen,
which
hold
one?
on.
Wait, which one?
The last closed session you had. Okay? Personnel closed session. For what? The guy's paying, I went over there. He gave me a copy of his water bill. He gave me copies of the last 6 months, how much he paid. He didn't have to do that. He showed me whatever I want to see, here's the records. What's the agenda on this guy? If you got something personal on him, don't take it on him. He cuts the grass, he pays $5,000. You guys are not happy? Sell him the property. He built it for 2 point something. He's not a nonprofit organization, he's a profit organization. He doesn't have to show me nothing. When you get these people sitting there having hate for the guy, for what reason? He doesn't want to be recognized, he doesn't care. Just leave the guy alone. I'm sick and tired of people talking about this guy like he's a piece of shit. He's really, excuse me,
No, we can't have that language.
Please, I got my minutes.
I know, but please, no.
Just explain
Councilman,
something,
I got it.
please.
Councilman, please, I
I'm
don't want
asking,
those words.
I'm begging you.
I know,
Let
you
me
can
sit-
speak, but just don't.
My time is the right
stop this
speaking,
time.
please.
Stop.
I'm not stopping anything.
No, 1 second, Councilman. Add a few seconds, because I interrupted him. Just please, no vulgar language. That's all I'm asking. Add about 12 seconds, please.
He can start talking, and I won't start it.
Go ahead, start 12 seconds, and we'll add 48 seconds. Go ahead.
So why'd you violate the Public Act meeting? For what reason? You want to throw him out? He's got a lease. He's got attorneys. He's got all power. You guys just can't throw a gentleman that helps the community. I called him the other day, hey, where are you? Oh, I'm doing baseball. He sits there, does baseball for free. For God's sakes, the guy helps the community. He's not even recognized. Why? Why? I just want to know, explain what kind of personal agenda do you have against this gentleman? I'm not talking about you guys. I don't know who has a personal agenda, but you don't treat them equal. You know, the guy, you have to cut his grass. He pays you guys money monthly. He's never missed a payment. I'm not understanding what's going on. You know, you guys should figure out how you're going to help this gentleman, not sit there and go against him. You know,
You got 12 seconds.
It just,
I gave it to him already.
how? How'd you give it to me? 0
I
minutes.
stopped and looked at my watch and counted to 12 seconds before I restarted.
Okay, I'm
But
not
go
understanding
ahead.
what kind of personal agenda you got. You sitting there, you know, what's it called?
I'll give you
I'm
12
sitting there
seconds.
talking. You know, it doesn't make sense. You don't want me to say something? Is that what it is? I'm not understanding. You did a closed meeting for no reason. You know what? If he files a lawsuit against you guys, I think he should.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owen.
Council Chair, really quick before Councilman or Resident Baydoun, whoever he's going to speak as, our planning commissioner, Lisa, stated something that, you know, I respect her opinion, but we didn't just bring these things up at tonight's meeting. These things that we brought up tonight, we brought up at every meeting, and it fell on deaf ears month after month, meeting after meeting, you know, and so it's not just something we brought up tonight and we're concerned about tonight. This is something that we talked about and asked for and didn't get for months and months. Thank you.
Okay, and also, just for Ms. Ferentz, it's right here. We said study session, this budget had to be potentially passed or not passed now. And through administration, myself and everyone, we had to put it for today's date. That's why we had to do a special meeting. Previous to that, the study session on ordinance enforcement, blight, et cetera, had already been scheduled. Because of that, and I knew the budget, I'm not sure how long it may take, I said it'd be immediately following it and approximately start time, 6:45 PM.
Council
But what
Chair.
was on,
Council Chair.
yes,
Before we had a special meeting, before the budget didn't pass, the original study session was supposed to be 6 PM. Because that's, I
again-
posted that immediately, right after I got the info from you. It would be at 6 PM.
but again,
I understand, it
Okay.
got changed.
that's
but
something you guys speak with the mayor and administration, because we had to put this budget on.
I understand
And we
that.
had to do a special study
understand,
session.
so we-
Okay, let's
How you
move on.
guys doing?
Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
How are you? I don't want to take up too much time. Mo Baydoun, Amboy Street, Dearborn Heights.
Resident or councilman?
Speaking as a resident.
Okay.
I want to thank those who passed the budget today. Good job, so a round of applause to you guys. And let me tell you guys something. I'm happy that you guys didn't just make an approval on this budget and that you guys held it firmly to what is right. Because at the end of the day, your jobs here specifically is to make sure that you balance a proper budget. And your main job as council members, not just taking phone calls from residents, but is to making sure that this budget was done the right way. And so if you had to wait with a little bit of doubt in you, had to wait a little bit longer, I'm okay with that. So congratulations to you guys. That's number one. Council Chair, number two, my parents' house on Sim Street in Dearborn Heights has a new tree. Thank you to the city. They took down the old one. They added a new one. And it's a tree with, you know, those little helicopters that come down.
Maple.
Yeah,
Maple tree.
Okay, so I wanted to know if it was close, if it was similar to a sycamore, or if it was.
You don't want to.
Whatever it is. My mom's yelling at me. She's telling me you're the councilman. I said, look, that doesn't work like that. I'm bringing it up to you guys. I'm bringing it up to the administration. My mother is not going to cook for me. I'm probably going to get beat up by her. Full open discussion here. If that tree is not changed, she's asking if she can plant her own tree if it's approved by the city.
You typically can, but approved trees.
Approved
specific
tree, approved tree. Her neighbor across the street, I guess the city planted
But
her a
your
red
best
tree.
bet is call Director Conrad and go from there.
So I just want you to know, I reached out to DPW today on behalf as a resident for my mother, regardless of, you know, me being on council. I just want to put it out there that my mother's not happy, but I know I saw a post on Facebook from the young gal that was sitting here. She spent all weekend cleaning her house. And then my mom sent me, she was cleaning her house all weekend. I said, I wonder if it's a sycamore tree, but I guess it's not. So thank you, Council Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Any other public comments in the audience? Come on up.
I just wanted to talk about ordinances.
That's coming up next.
That's coming up next.
Right after this meeting.
It's
Sir,
gonna
are
be,
you-
it's gonna be,
Sir, are you speaking on, not yourself, are you referencing blight and those types of ordinances? Yeah, that'll be right the next meeting. In about, right after the last public comment, 3, 4, 5 minutes after. Go ahead, sir.
Suhair Abdulhaq or Rosemary, so you don't have to ask.
Dearborn Heights.
Okay, Dearborn Heights. I want to talk about the COVID money, the ARPA money. I believe the $14 million which are left from the 24 million or 25 are very restricted. They are not loose to be used for anything except for sanitary and water projects. I think the conditions and the terms are very
I'm
clear.
sorry, 1 second. Please, in the audience, no talking. Go ahead.
The $10 million which are left to be put in the general fund, that's where it is loose. You can use them for anything. And when Tom Wenzel spoke about giving the police and fire and the people from DPW and all the employees who worked during COVID, that was the intention of the federal government, is to reward those people who put their life on the line for us. That's where we need to use the $700,000 to be distributed equally among all the people who came and worked during COVID for us. So there shouldn't be any confusion between the 14 millions, which is restricted, and the 10 millions or the 7.8, which is left from it. And before this is spent and disappear, I suggest you really put that $700,000 in the lockbox and start on looking to see who worked and start cutting the checks for those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments in the audience? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, anybody on Zoom?
I think Mocas had his hand up.
Is he on Zoom?
I don't see
Yeah.
him, though. I mean, I don't see any hands up.
I don't,
He's there, but I don't see his hand.
Yeah, I think he put it down. Never mind.
okay. If there's nobody else on Zoom,
motion to adjourn.
motion to.
Support.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Muscat, seconded by Councilman Baydoun. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.